Hey, good evening, folks. Hope everyone is having a fine Sunday night. It's been a long day for me. I think I've been on YouTube all day watching streams, and I had a lot of housework today. I was doing some sanding of some real wood trim around a window and all kinds of stuff, like preparing for some blind installs next week. And anyway, during this whole thing, during the whole evening, I've been just listening to YouTube streams all day. I've listened to The Line. I've listened to Maya. I've listened to Paulogia. I was in a Zoom call with Jimmy Snow and Dave Warnock, which was an amazing 1 hour. Got to talk to Dave Warnock a little bit, ask him some questions. And anyway, yeah, so it's about, almost 10 o'clock here on the West Coast. And I figure, hey, you know what? Why not top off the day with a live stream of my own? So here we are. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Who we got here right now? We have Dave from Deep Drinks, man. Hey, he reached out to me on Twitter once he saw the title of my stream. He was like, "You got Cameron Bertuzzi coming on?" And I'm like, "No, I don't have Cameron Bertuzzi coming on. I'm just going to be talking about him." So yeah, I'm sorry, Dave. I'm really hopefully you're not too upset about that. I would love to talk to Cameron Bertuzzi. I don't know. He's he's got a successful YouTube channel, young, charismatic guy. I just got some questions about kind of the direction he's taking his content, which I don't know. I guess that whole kind of, I don't want to call it a fiasco, but just that kind of weirdness about him having a live stream where he's talking about the direction of his channel. And then he asks for donations, and then he announces he's converting to Catholicism. And then a few weeks later, just a few weeks ago, he was like, "Hey, I know I was supposed to be confirmed over Easter like I said I would, but hey, I'm not going to reveal whether I was or not. In fact, my denomination is now a private matter." I can understand if he's getting weird messages or flack from fellow Christians, or maybe his wife is getting messages like, "Hey, your husband's now a Catholic. Why aren't you a Catholic?" I'm speculation. I don't know what's going on there. And I can understand if his family's getting harassment or weird messages and why he's backing off from that. But it's just kind of just an odd situation. On top of that, I've watched a few of his streams. His streams are kind of focusing on demons right now, selling the whole demons fantasy as reality. And I don't know. I see a lot of kind of just things that seem to be very pure speculation. I see things that seem to be very kind of just what will drive my channel forward and get viewership instead of what's actually reality. So yeah, I don't know. A lot of weirdness kind of around there that I'm detecting. I could be way off base. Who knows? I'm not a perfect judge of character or anything like that, but yeah. So kind of some weirdness going on there. Hey, Eddie Dean. Hey man, how you doing? Yeah, I looked up at my channel. It's been a month since my last live stream. I can't believe it. Time just flies by. I have been active. I've been on some other channels. I was on Skeptic Haven. I had a live stream with Dave from Deep Drinks, who's in the channel here with us tonight. We had that live Demons live stream. I just most recently co-hosted an episode of The Hang Up on the Line with Matt Dillahunty, which is just, I don't want to call it a deep dream come true because I know Matt would hate to hear that, but I mean, Matt was a huge influence in my life. Especially me coming out of religion. He was kind of one of those things where one of those people where I kind of just viewed, and I was like, this guy makes sense. I listened to a lot of what he had to say, and he was very hopeful in getting me out of my religion, more grounded in reality, and just kind of just set me on the right path. So I'm very appreciative of that. So that was just a dream come true. It was just surreal just hosting an episode of The Hang Up with him. So yeah, and I think that went fairly well. I look back, I've rewatched that stream a couple times, and I definitely made a couple mistakes during it. I think at one point I said incredulous instead of credulous. I got the words flipped, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. And a couple other things, but I think feedback's been fairly positive. from it, and I'm happy with the way it went. So anyway, I'm hoping for future co-hosting events on the Line or the Sunday or I'm sorry, the Hang Up or the Sunday Show. Hopefully in the near future. And and if Jimmy or Maddie ever listen to this stream here, thank you very much for that opportunity. I really appreciate it. I had a great time. I would love to come back. Who else we got going here? Kari, hey, how you doing? Glad to see you here. Hillel, yeah, the whole Catholic demon stuff is certainly something. Yeah. I think James Fodor did an episode reviewing the. I think James Fodor did the Cameron Bertuzzi and Richard Gallagher stream about demons, and then I did something similar with Sean McDowell and the same Richard Gallagher about demons. It was essentially virtually the same interview, pretty much, just the two different apologists interviewing the same, wannabe demon exorcists. So. But yeah, so Ember, Nitty, and I probably have to do a part 2 on that. That'd be pretty fun. We'll probably do that here pretty soon. Oh boy, Wesley's got some cap locks going on here. Is your caps lock broken, Wesley? OmniMark money, please, blah blah blah. Please get on that OmniMark. Thanks everybody. The blessing of our God Jesus is money. Okay. Thanks, Wesley. I think. Okay, and I guess that's it for right now. Anyway, so what I got going tonight. So hey, I've been reading a book. I've been getting through it. It's right here. You can see a bunch of my notes in the pages here. This is a book called A Manual for Creating Atheists. This is a book on street epistemology by a guy named Peter Boghossian. Some of you may be familiar with this, some of you may not. But this book, according to the foreword is by a guy named Michael Shermer, and he brands his book as the perfect companion for the God delusion. And this book was published back in like 2012, 2013. So it's a little aged now. It's about 10 years old now. But anyway, this is a book about using street epistemology to engage the religious and I don't want to say challenge their beliefs, but force them to justify their positions and justify the methodology they use to get to their conclusions. And I'm only a few chapters in. You can see that, if you look at the bookmarks here, I'm only about a quarter way through it. And I was looking through this book last night, and then I saw this last night, which was pretty amazing. 5 ways to respond to street epistemology. So, and this is on Capturing Christianity's website. So I was reading this book, and then I did a search for street epistemology on Google, and this page came up. But anyway, we're going to get to this blog post here in a moment. But for right now, I want to talk a little bit about this book. So as problematic as I know he is to some people, Pine Creek Doug, I've been watching Pine Creek Doug since August, and I am fully aware that there are probably a lot of those in the skeptic and atheist community that have a problem with him. As far as I know, he hasn't said anything like too out there that has made me go, I don't think I want to be around this guy. But despite all those kind of issues that may or may not be around him, I don't think it can be denied that he is a very good street apologist. If you watch not his politics channel, but his just regular Pine Creek channel, when he has Christian or religious callers call in, he is extremely good at just leveraging very simple, very straightforward questions and exposing kind of the holes or the holes in their thinking or the places in their epistemology where they kind of jumped forward and didn't quite think things through. Just today and also last week, I've had I'm a former Jehovah's Witness, and I actually just got some Jehovah's Witnesses at my door last week, and they did a return visit this week. They don't know I'm an ex-Jehovah's Witness. I'm just posing as just a guy. But for the most part, I'm just talking to them and just asking them questions, just much like street epistemologists. Really quick here. Sorry, I want to pause the stream just for a moment. I just realized I have no moderators in the chat. So, hey, Hillel, I'm going to promote you to moderator. And Eddie Dean, you definitely earned moderator privileges. I think you've sent me enough super chats so that you've earned it. So hopefully both of you are still here and you can moderate the channel, because I'm not really watching the stream right now. I see Wesley's talking a lot. Seems to be like a lot of nonsense. If Wesley's out of line, go ahead and sideline him. Anyway, I'm sorry. So anyway, back to the regular stream. So anyway, I've had Jehovah's Witnesses come to my door, and I've been practicing a little bit of the Street Epistemology on them, just asking them questions. Basically, one of them is basically like, hey, you know, the Bible's true. The Bible's God's word. You should believe it. That's essentially what he's saying to me. And I'm basically asking him, hey, what about the Bible is true? What about it should be? Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and thank you, Eddie. I appreciate it. I was about to take care of that. Thank you so much. I just realized I didn't have moderators in the chat, so really appreciate it. Anyway, so where was I? Yeah, I'm just asking very simple questions to them. They're trying to sell me the Bible as God's word, and a good piece of evidence for God's word is that Isaiah foretold the fall of Babylon and named the guy named Cyrus as the one that's going to deliver or conquer Babylon and deliver the Jews out of exile and yada, yada, yada. And anyway, I went through the whole Street Epistemology routine on him, and it finally got to the point where he was presenting me this scripture as evidence that the Bible is God's word, and I asked him directly, how do you know that prophecy of Babylon being destroyed and never inhabited again, and also Cyrus delivering the Jews, how do you know that was written before the events? How do you know that it's not written after the events? It stopped the conversation cold. This was today, early this afternoon. It stopped the conversation cold. There was an awkward moment of silence where the guy was like, wow, this guy's just not accepting what I'm saying. He tried to get away from that and talk about something else, but I pulled him right back to it, and I said, well, hold on, you didn't answer my question. What makes you think this scripture was written written before the fact and not after the fact? He didn't have an answer. And he finally got around to the point where he admitted, I don't have an answer to that. I was told that this was a prophecy. So anyway, he's going to have another return visit on me later on. Hopefully he comes back. He may not. Jehovah's Witnesses, I used to be a Jehovah's Witness. So if a Jehovah's Witness is at the door and the householder is not quite receptive or resistant, the Jehovah's Witness will just simply drop the return and just say, you know what, this person's non-receptive. I'll come back at some later date, or somebody else can come back at a later date when the person is more receptive. So if I hear back from him or not, I'll probably give an update at that point. But I'm just doing stuff that's in this book here. It's just basically asking simple questions, just like tying back to Pine Creek and his channel, just asking simple questions, asking people how do they come to those conclusions, or how do they come to the claims, to believe the claims that they are presenting. And anyway, that's what this book's all about. And I'm currently reading through it. But anyway, I'm currently reading that, and then I came across Cameron Bertuzzi's, blog post here, 5 ways to respond to street epistemologists. And it was interesting to read through. I'm by no means an expert on street epistemology. I'm trying to make street epistemology my kind of main method in engaging Christians or the religious. If any of you tuned into the line the other night when I was co-hosting with Matt, that's kind of the strategy I was trying to employ. I was engaging people with questions and trying to point out, hey, you are giving me this evidence that might be perfectly valid for some other religion. You are not necessarily demonstrating to me that your religion is true. You're just demonstrating to me that any religion could be true if I were to follow this methodology. Anyway, I came across this article, and what I wanted to do, I skimmed this and I read through it, and I found a few issues, gives me a little bit of an idea of where Cameron Bertuzzi's kind of at when it comes to street epistemology. Because I know he's engaged Pine Creek Doug in previous, maybe even tweets, or I don't know if he's ever necessarily talked to him one-on-one or in a live stream, but I figure it'd be fun to just kind of roll through this and and get some comments on it. So, and for this stream, I'm going to open it up. If anybody wants to join me and pop in, I'll send you a link. Just let me know in the chat. I'll send you a link, and we can sit here and just kind of talk about it. And I got a beer here. I'm just finishing my pizza. My pizza came very late. I ordered it like an hour and a half ago, and it just arrived right before this stream started. So I'm still trying to finish my pizza. But anyway, okay, let's get going. And hey, Ember's here. Hey man, how you doing? Good to see you, Ember. Ember was also in that Zoom call with Dave Warnock and Jimmy Snow earlier, and that was really fun. Yeah. So anyway, let's get going. What's on it? What's on my pizza? Well, I could probably, yeah, it's holding together. This is like a Hawaiian pizza. It's got some ham, pineapple, jalapenos, and barbecue sauce on it. Yeah, it's very cold because they delivered it nearly an hour late. Not very happy about that. But it's the only pizza place around my house, so it's I have to order for them because I got no other choice. All right. 5 ways to respond to street epistemology. And before we begin, just a very high level overview of what street epistemology is. Street epistemology is not it is not an attack on religious beliefs. It is a demand for justification of those beliefs. So, like if you have a religious person in front of you and they are preaching to you, you have 2 options that you can go with. Well, at least 2 options. There might be a third one that I'm not thinking of right now. But one is you can take their point and make counterpoints. If they hand you a scripture that, hey, this scripture demonstrates this about the Bible, you could say, hey, no, I got this scripture over here that demonstrates this. So what's up? You can do a back and forth like that and kind of go on the attack. Or with street epistemology, you are essentially not in a position of making claims, which might seem like a cop-out, like, hey, why are you in an argument if you're not making claims? But that's perfectly valid. If you can simply sit back and say, hey, I don't have a position to hold. I'm not defending a position here. I am not advocating for a position here. But I will question your position. I will question the way you're getting to your conclusions. I will question your methodology. And I will run a comparison between what you're telling me and what necessarily other religions are telling me. And and a lot of interesting things come about because if your goal is to convince the other person that, hey, they're holding a flawed position, instead of going on the attack, which may shut people down and keep them from listening or make them disengage, by asking questions, you are compelling that other person, you're compelling your interlocutor to do the thinking for themselves. If you ask, like, for instance, today, the Jehovah's Witness that was at my door, when I asked him, what makes you think this was written before the fact? What makes you think this prophecy was actually written before the events list of history? That forces them to think about that answer. Another strategy that you can go with is, if for instance, the empty tomb, Jesus supposedly died, was buried, angels stopped by, rolled away the stone that blocked the entrance of the tomb. Jesus left, and then also the tomb is empty, and everyone's like, oh my God, the tomb's empty. What happened? Christians will say, well, angels showed up, Jesus was resurrected, tomb was empty. That's their explanation. But you could potentially ask a question, okay, let's just say for a moment, hypothetically, just for a moment, let's put that explanation aside and say that didn't happen. What other explanations could explain the empty tomb? And by asking that question, by putting aside what they believe and just simply saying, what alternatives are there to your current belief? That gets their brains going and gets them into the mode of, okay, well, maybe the body was stolen, or maybe the story is just made up, or maybe, there was a mistake, or all kinds of plausible naturalistic explanations they can kind of go through. And all you got to do is just kind of get them for just a moment, shelf the supernatural explanation. So that's kind of what street epistemology is. It's essentially pushing the thinking onto your interlocutor. It's getting them to think through and justify their beliefs. And honestly, if their beliefs are justified, if their beliefs hold water, they should be able to weather this inquiry. And it's when that their beliefs are not justified, or when they have not really thought through their beliefs, that's when things get kind of, there's long pauses in the conversation between questions because they're thinking of an answer to something they necessarily haven't considered before. And yeah, it's really fun. So, and like I said, this is kind of the main thing I'm kind of been focusing on with my channel, is I want to do that. Anyway, I'll stop babbling and get on to babbling about this article here. Anyway, 5 ways to respond to street epistemology. Oh, hey, Ember wants to pop in. Let me give Ember his invite, and then we'll get right into it. I don't want to... Let's see here. Ember, I will toss that to you on the Twitter. Where are you? I haven't talked to you in a while. Not since April 19th. All right, Ember, you got your thing on the way. Your link is on the way. Wannabe scholar. Pineapple pizza exists. Explain that, atheists. I like pineapple on pizza. I like the sweet with the savory, but I can understand why some people don't like it. It's a fruit on a pizza. Well, although tomatoes are fruit, right? So, I know. Take that, God. Okay. What? JW's at the door? Yeah, Carrie. So I'm assuming you're in the United States. The United States just dropped the whole COVID precautions procedure of emergency thing. Like, I guess on paper, COVID is officially over in the United States. And I think that was the beginning of this month. And sure enough, a week later, I had Jehovah's Witnesses at my door, which I'm like, I can't wait. I'm so glad this is back now. I've been waiting for them to come because I've lived in a bunch of places over the past 10 years, and I've never had a opportunity to talk to a witness actually at my door. And I bought this house, and now finally 5 years after I bought this house, I had my first witness at the door. So yeah, super fun. Okay, anyway, yeah, Ember, I sent you that link. Let me double check, make sure I sent you the link. Yep, you got the link. So yeah, stop on in whenever you want. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So yeah, 5 ways to respond to street epistemology. This is from March 2019. I'll make this a little bit bigger so everybody can... Maybe, let me see here. That's terrible. I guess that's okay. Let's do it that way. Okay. 5 ways to respond to street epistemology. So we're just going to kind of go through this few paragraphs at a time and talk about it. And this is by Cameron Bertuzzi, according to the thing. So this is his response to the scourge of street epistemology. Cameron says, "What if I told you that anyone can navigate a real-life discussion with a street epistemologist? It's true. In this post, I lay out 5 ways to respond to street epistemology. Not every interaction will be the same, so some of these tips will need to be modified or even abandoned. At the end of the post, I'll explain what to do in such a situation." So I find it interesting here that Cameron is selling this as a method for anyone to navigate a real-life discussion with a street epistemologist. This is like framing it like it's... like this is framing it so that it's as if some people can't navigate a conversation with a street epistemologist. It's just questions. The street epistemologist is just asking questions. Hey, Ember's here. I'm going to go ahead and bring him in here. Hey, man.
Howdy.
How you doing?
Oh, it's all right. Good to actually get to talk to you. We didn't really have a chance to talk during the Zoom call thing.
Yeah, Jimmy just kind of just like, okay, we're done. Bye. And just ended the call. Yeah, that's fine. That guy's on a schedule. That guy is busy. So I don't blame him at all. That was a really fun thing early today. And again, anybody who doesn't know about it, if you were a patron of the line on Patreon, we had a private invite to have like a one-on-one chat with Dave Warnock, which was great. I had a really good time.
Yeah, always great to see Dave.
Yeah, Dave's awesome. So anyway, before we continue on, Ember, you have any comments about street epistemology or Cameron Bertuzzi or anything in general? You just want to...
a little of each. So street epistemology, I get the general idea. It's sort of like street preaching in reverse. It's, have you thought about that? What's your reason for thinking that? But I've been meaning to learn more about it. So this is an exciting thing. As far as Cameron, my only encounter with him was, he released a video, something like 12 things that Christians do wrong or whatever. And I reviewed that video, and I found that not only did I agree with him, but I found that many of those points were applicable to atheists too.
Yeah.
So I I haven't been back to bother him again because I kind of want to leave it on the high note.
Yeah. It's like, hey, we're at a good place right now. Let's not like mess with it. Let's just kind of leave it and we'll go do our own thing. Yeah. I know what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah. I know he's been causing a lot of trouble lately with the whole, oh, I'm converting to Catholicism, send me money.
Yeah, it's
Oh, I'm not going to
embarrassing.
talk about my religion now, send me money.
It's a little embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to assign motivation to him. But just the whole thing to me just feels like, what can I do and say and talk to that will make me the most revenue for my channel? And I understand this is if this is his source of income and this is his method of living, I understand that motivation. I'd probably be in the same exact. I do this as a hobby. Like, I have a day job, I have a paycheck. Like, I don't, any money that comes my way off of my YouTube channel is just extra. In fact, I'm probably going to get to the point where I'm just going to say, you know what? I don't care about any money I make on my YouTube channel. I'm going to just forward it all to charity or something like that. Like, I don't want to get involved in that. But if it's my main method of income, or my only source of income to feed my wife and my children and all that, I can understand the motivation. Hey, I want to maximize my gains for my effort. I can understand that. But it feels like, yeah, what he's done in the past several months is like, it's just kind of feels a little bit like thrashing. Like, he's kind of flip-flopping back and forth with the conversion thing, and just kind of with the people he's been interviewing. It's like, oh, this is kind of, I don't know.
Yeah,
I could be
yeah,
way off base. I don't know.
it's a little rough. It's kind of like if you took your April Fool's video and did it seriously.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Yeah, that's a funny comment, because my April Fool's video was a parody of his serious video. So to take my video and make it serious again, and then you're right back to where he's at. So,
Oh,
yeah,
no.
absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, so like I said, I'm pretty fascinated by street epistemology, because just I've watched Pine Creek Doug do it for a while. I've seen him get some really good results, and it just makes sense. Like, just have them justify their position. That's really what it comes down to. But anyway, Cameron Bertuzzi has seen street epistemology as enough of a threat in order to make this blog post. So, anyway.
Thinking terrible, danger.
Yeah. Anyway, according to Peter Boghossian, who is the author of this book, as I just mentioned, the founder of street epistemology, creating atheists is as easy as attacking faith. That's an interesting way to put it. Creating atheists is as easy as attacking faith. How do you attack something with questions?
Yeah, that's an interesting reframe of things, because I mean, I can't speak for anybody else, but when I do, I guess, counter apologetics, I don't really go after faith. I ask about the reason behind it. Like, why the faith, though?
Yeah. I like the only way I think that you can attack somebody with questions is if your questions are loaded. Like, hey Amber, have you stopped beating your wife yet? Or hey Amber, have you stopped, embezzling money from your job? Like, I don't see how a question like, how do you know that is true, is an attack on somebody's faith. It's as if faith is some type of, for lack of a better word, sacred cow that you cannot question, you cannot scrutinize. How dare you leverage any type of inquiry against this and make me justify it? That's kind of what it feels like with that statement there.
To a lot of people, they consider faith to be a virtue.
Yeah, and that's verbatim. That's what a lot of people say. Faith is a virtue. Like, faith is a commendable quality that God will smile upon you if you display. I don't know. It's just it's an elevation of your belief and your position above any type of inquiry. It kind of irks me, because you're basically saying my position, my belief, my thing is above, let's say, this type of inquiry we would engage in if we were trying to determine whether somebody was guilty of a crime, or whether the product the salesman's trying to sell me is actually a quality product that won't, fail on me.
How
Or,
dare you question the product?
yeah.
That's
It's something
un-American.
like, it is this thing up in the clouds. It's like untouchable, and how dare you try? Like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, he details this method in his book, A Manual for Creating Atheists. Since being published, Street Epistemologist, a term coined by Bogosian, has adapted his message in various ways to fit their own personality and agenda. Well, hey, that's true. I mean, I'm here saying I like Street Epistemology. I got a personality. I have an agenda. I'm doing that. So I agree with him on this. Yeah, it's when
Much-
you have a new. Go ahead. What's that?
Much like StreamYard's very good with the minimal delay, but there's still
Yeah.
that tiny delay.
Yeah. No worries.
Yeah, it's much like apologists. They all have the same arguments, but they tailor them to their own styles.
Yeah, exactly. So I absolutely do not disagree with him on that. And in fact, there are many statements in this article that I do agree with, but there are a few key statements that are like, whoa, we just diverged immensely. Okay. But the core of his method hasn't changed. It centers on faith, even if the word faith isn't explicitly mentioned, which is really interesting because this book really does go into the definition of faith. So I'm not sure what Cameron's getting at here. In fact, I would say faith is kind of the crux of the conversation when it comes to street epistemology, because essentially it comes down to your methodology. Christians say faith is a methodology to reach truth claims. The street epistemologist is saying, no, faith is not, or rather, please demonstrate to me how faith is a good methodology to reach truth claims. So I'm kind of interested in see why he mentions that there, because faith, in chapter 2 of the book, faith is well defined. In fact, there's 2 definitions given to faith that Bogosian goes into, and it's very thorough. But the core of his message hasn't changed. Oh, it's centered on faith, blah, blah, blah. Step 1, identify a belief that is held on the basis of faith. Step 2, introduce doubt by asking how they know that belief is true. That's the method. And he's right. I mean, we are identifying a belief, and introducing doubt, like, wouldn't you want doubt introduced in almost anything you hold? Like, shouldn't we hold a healthy amount of doubt for literally all of our beliefs? Like, it's as if Cameron's saying, hey, your belief, your Christian belief should be without doubt. And that's probably within the realm of reason that he would actually say something like that. Like, you should hold your Christian belief without doubt. And he's saying by introducing doubt into this, it is a bad thing. Whereas on the flip side, a skeptic or a non-believer, I have a healthy sense of doubt on just about anything, on everything I hold. Probably everything except maybe just the notion that I think, therefore I am. Like, if I doubt, I am. If I think I am.
That's
like,
the answer to that one.
Probably the only thing I don't have a doubt about. Literally
Ironically.
anything else. Yeah. Like, even right now, me talking to you, Ember, I have a slight bit of doubt that, hey, maybe I'm hallucinating, maybe I'm dreaming, maybe I'm drinking too much tonight, maybe I'm bouncing around a padded room in a straitjacket. I don't know. But for right now, I believe I'm talking to you right here, and we're talking about this. But yeah, so introducing doubt is step 2 of it, and he's not necessarily disparaging it or talking bad about it, but are we introducing doubt, or are we simply saying you're lacking doubt where you should?
Yeah, like there should already be doubt there.
Yeah.
Like when we consider, the most solid sciences we know, like evolution or Big Bang.
Yeah.
There's doubt built in. We implicitly believe that they're never quite correct, and the theories could be overthrown by a better theory, the same way general relativity overthrew Newton.
Yeah. And I think that's a great observation. Every one of our positions, if you're honest, every one of your positions should be held tentatively. There should be something You should always have the possibility open that, hey, something might come along to upend this belief, to demonstrate to me that I am wrong, and to adjust my thinking. To sit there and say nothing will ever come along and change my belief on this, I think is inherently dishonest, because you're basically saying I have full understanding of all possible things can be thrown my way, and I know for a fact none of them will ever change my idea about this.
Yeah,
I think
it's
that's
Ken
just
Ham
not.
versus Bill Nye saying
Yeah.
nothing will ever change my mind,
Yeah.
which is just another way of saying I don't care if it's a lie. I'm going to believe it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. So, an introduction. I mean, he's factually correct in here. I feel there's some insinuations in here, but I could be misreading it. But we'll see as we continue on. Okay, so step 1, define your terms, and I think that's great because in chapter 2 of this book, it's talking about terms. And I know a lot of people don't like getting bogged down in like philosophical, what does this word really mean? Like, you don't have to get down like too much in the nitty gritty of it, but it's good to define terms, because like, I don't know, just like a simple term like atheist. Many people have a different idea what an atheist is. For me, an atheist is someone who just simply lacks a belief in a gods. For others, it might be a person who actively believes there are no gods. There are others, there are even maybe some in the world, there are some in the world who say an atheist is someone who hates God. They're completely wrong about that, but they have that definition. Like, they hold that definition in their mind. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I think before you talk about anything, you definitely need to kind of refine your definitions. And I want to say this: if you're having a conversation with anybody and they absolutely do not want to let go of a definition of one of their words, say, okay, fine, I'll go ahead and give you that. Like, we'll hold this conversation with that definition. And while that kind of puts you in the position of, okay, you got to kind of rework your terminology to fit that definition, you can still work with that. Like, if I was talking to a person who was absolutely adamant that an atheist is someone who hates God, like, just for example, the person says an atheist just hates God. Doesn't make sense, but that's the definition they hold. I could say, yeah, sure, okay, I'll go with that definition. Guess what? I'm not an atheist because I don't hate God. Like, you basically just excluded me from this conversation if we're talking about somebody like me.
Yeah, in that case, okay, today I'm an agnostic.
Today an agnostic, yeah, or just give it whatever you want. The philosophical, I actually read this a little while ago. So, colloquially, atheist is someone who lacks a belief in a God. Philosophically, an atheist is someone who holds the belief there are no gods in a philosophical sense. I forget what some philosophy authority dictionary. I can't remember exactly what it was, but that's how they define it. But they do acknowledge that, hey, there are people who do not fit this. There are people who simply lack that belief, and we call those people non-theists. So if you're ever in a conversation where somebody wants to really pin down the definition of an atheist as someone who says there are no gods, you can simply say, okay, fine, for this conversation, we'll go with that definition, in which case I'm a non-theist. I am someone who does not do that. I'm not a theist. I'm not an atheist. I'm a non-theist. So yeah, and definitions can be whatever you want them to be, just as long as you aren't allowing your interlocutor to use them to lock you into positions you don't necessarily hold, because people can get very hung up on labels and stuff like that.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah, big time. So, and instead of arguing about it, just sometimes it's easier to just give in and just say, okay, fine, we'll give you your definition, but now I'm no longer covered by it if it happens to be the case. Okay, yeah, so I skipped this? Okay. So people use words differently. The first two responses are meant to show how important that is to define your own terms. If you don't, you're in danger of talking past one another and having a fruitless dialogue. I assume that's not what you want, but more than that, clarifying what you mean can work in your favor. 1 and 2 are prime examples. I encourage you to think and locate other terms that need defining. So, yeah, basically just what we just talked about here. So he's talking about 1 and 2 in the context of definition. So we'll go into number 1, define your level of confidence. And I haven't gotten to this chapter in the book yet, but this is definitely something I've seen Pine Creek Doug use quite a lot. And I think it's very effective because it's really good at getting a person to plant a flag or not plant a flag on one of their claims. Anyway, early on in the interview, the street epistemologist will ask how confident you are in Christianity. For example, they'll ask, on a scale of 0 to 100, where 0 is all doubts and no confidence, and 100% is all confidence and no doubts, how confident are you that Christianity is true? A lot of believers have been taught, quite wrongly in my opinion, and he has a hyperlink to his blog post on that probably, we shouldn't profess about it. We shouldn't profess doubt. I'm sorry, we shouldn't profess doubt. So you might be tempted to blurt out 100%. Don't take that bait. Instead, define your terms by asking to calibrate the scale. I find this funny that he's framing this as the street epistemologist is trying to trap the person. And I guess that might be kind of accurate. I mean, watching Pine Creek, yeah, he definitely does maneuver people. I don't want to call them traps, because traps has like a really negative, like, I'm scheming to trip you up. If
we're demons trying to trick you.
Yeah, or demons trying to trick you, yeah, or anything like that. I think if you could be maneuvered into a trap by questions, that's really more of a statement about your belief than the person giving you the questions. If a person can leverage non-loaded questions to you and trap you, that's a problem with your position and not a problem with the person asking the questions, in my opinion. I've yet to really see somebody who can ask questions dishonestly. Yeah. So Hillel, how confident are you? Yep. That's exactly what we're going to be doing here. And yeah, so the scale from 0 to 100, obviously I don't think any Christian would ever say they have zero confidence in their belief. Probably many Christians who would say there's 100% because, hey, they want to really stand up for God. They want to make their God happy and smile upon them. So of course they have 100% confidence.
Yeah. Belief in the belief is part of the belief. It's self-reinforcing. That's how you get that whole, I know that I know that I know that I know.
I know that I know that I know that I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, yeah. And hey, and there will be Christians and religious people who will think about it a little bit and say, hey, you know what? Maybe 90%, maybe 95%, maybe 99%. Even if it's 99%, they're at least admitting, hey, there's something might change my mind, which, I think it's a commendable position to hold, even if you're religious, because,
Yeah, I feel like there's a focus on this because it's similar to the apologist tactic of how certain are you that there isn't a God? How much of all possible knowledge do you know? Is it 10%? Yeah. Is it 20%? Could God be hiding in the other 80%?
Yeah.
I noticed that in counter apologetics, there's a lot of projection. There's a lot of, this is what we do, so the atheists are doing it too.
Yeah, exactly. And we mentioned before, having a little bit of doubt on every one of your positions it's a healthy thing. I don't think having absolute confidence in anything, I think, is you're fooling yourself. You say if you have 100% absolute confidence in anything, you're fooling yourself. I do like the term maximal confidence. Like I have maximal confidence that I exist. I think, therefore I am. I have maximal confidence in that. Like I can't go any higher. I'm not absolute. I could be wrong, but I do not see how anything could potentially demonstrate that I am wrong, that I exist. And there are very, very few things that I hold maximum confidence on. But might be kind of a cheat, but it's essentially the same as I have 99.9% confidence in this. I don't see how I can get any higher. It's kind of like in mathematics. Like remember an asymptote in mathematics? It's a it's a line that approaches another line but never touches it. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Okay, cool. So there are define your level of confidence. There are two ways of doing this. First, you can define the numbers, but instead of 100 being defined as all confidence, no doubt, tell them that 100 ought to mean my level of confidence that Caesar crossed the Rubicon. So here, this is interesting because
it's an odd, random history thing.
Yeah, this is like trying to make 100% not equal 100%. Like, why not just say 95%? It accomplishes the same thing. Like, I'm 95% sure that Caesar crossed the Rubicon. Historians hold to that. We could be wrong about it. But why do redefine 100% to not equal 100%? You know?
Yeah, that seems weird.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. I think a lot of this can just be avoided by just simply avoiding the 100% label or the 100% value for anything. But anyway, historians aren't certain that Caesar crossed the Rubicon, but they believe it's given the evidence. You don't have to use Caesar, by the way. Blah blah blah. You can use Washington crossing the Delaware. You can use all kinds of.
Yeah, I think that would be a better
examples. Yeah. I think a lot of people go like, Caesar, Rubicon, what? But in the United States, if you know anything about U.S. history, Washington was a U.S. president, fought in the American Revolution. He was a general in the American Revolution and did a lot of crazy stuff with his army to win the war. And yeah, so Washington crossing the Delaware definitely can fit that. If the street epistemologist is willing to define the numbers that way, then respond with 100% or whatever number you're actually at. Again, just call it 95%. Just move on. It's like they want to have the 100% number put on that because that's like a whole complete confident number, while also getting away from the problems with claiming absolute certainty in that. It's like they want their cake and they want to eat it too. The second option is to leave the numbers alone and ask where they think Caesar crossing the Rubicon or some other well-attested historical event sits on the scale. If they refuse to do so, ask why. You might consider refusing yourself. So this is basically just flip their script on them, make them make a certainty claim, which is fine. If they want to talk to me about certainty on things, I am perfectly fine in saying I hold no belief beyond 99%. I hold no belief beyond 95%. Like I have no problem with that. I don't need to have absolute certainty in anything. Like I don't need that. I don't need to know something is definitely true. I can have levels of confidence in things.
Yeah, like especially something like Caesar crossing the Rubicon. Like no one's identity is staked on that. I don't know.
Yeah, there's quite a. I talked about this with the Jehovah's Witness that came to my door today about certainty and accepting claims. Like Ember, if you told me you own a dog, I'll just believe it. Okay, you own a dog.
Yeah, pretty basic.
I mean, aside from the fact that we have lots of evidence of other people owning dogs, if you're lying to me and I am wrong in believing you, my worldview is not shattered. If I believe Caesar crossed the Rubicon and then later on it's determined that Caesar didn't in fact cross the Rubicon, my worldview is not shattered. I just go, oh, I was wrong about that, and I move on with my fucking life.
Yeah, I mean, even high stakes things as far as worldview goes. Like when the archaeologists and paleontologists determined that the story of Exodus could not possibly have happened, that could have been worldview shattering, and yet the faithful just kind of went, huh, and moved on,
Yeah, and that was when we should maybe do a whole other discussion on that, because that's like really interesting. Because that's I don't know, like a lot of I'm wondering how many Christians nowadays are like not entirely Bible literalists, like they don't necessarily believe the flood or Adam and Eve or maybe necessarily Exodus. Like how much of that they're willing to let go in order to make their beliefs fit with current, observations.
I noticed that it's been getting. It's almost a God of the Gap situation with the religion itself. Godless Granny was talking about this a couple of weeks ago, where she's been meeting more and more Christians who consider the Bible basically to just be all metaphor, except for the Jesus stuff, because that's the important bit. And she said, well, that's funny, because if you believe the Jesus story, then Jesus was a rabbi. He was a preacher of the Old Testament. He believed the Old Testament. And if he's the Son of God and he believed the Old Testament, which we now know was fictional, that's a problem for him being the Son of God.
Yeah. If Jesus doesn't know something, he wasn't God. Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Oh, man. Yeah, and yeah, there's a lot to talk about there. We should maybe have like a whole nother discussion on that one of these days. Okay, so why is this important? Claims about ancient history are never certain. We can have very good reasons to think they actually happened, but it's unreasonable to expect certainty. This shouldn't worry believers, since knowledge that Christianity is true doesn't require being certain that Christianity is true. That's an interesting statement, but we'll get back to it. Moreover, as any first-year philosophy student will tell you, we are absolutely certain of very little.
Granted.
Yeah. As an analogy, we may never know with certainty that Julius Caesar was assassinated in the Forum, but we can claim to know it on the basis of the historical evidence left behind. The same goes for belief in Christianity. There are very good reasons to think it's true given the evidence we have. So Cameron's trying to equate a mundane claim with a non-mundane claim or an extraordinary claim. Which I think I was halfway through that thought previously, but then I got sidetracked. Me believing that you own a dog and being wrong doesn't affect my life in the slightest. Me believing that Christ rose from the dead and will send me to hell if I don't believe in him, if I adopt that and I'm wrong, that's life altering.
Mm-hmm.
All my decisions, my entire destiny, for lack of a better term, my path of existence will be drastically altered if I were to accept that belief, and drastically altered for no reason if I'm wrong. So, yeah, like Cameron, the fact that Cameron's trying to equate this mundane claim about Rubicon, Caesar crossing Rubicon, or Caesar getting stabbed by multiple knives, like the knife holders in kitchens attest to.
Weird how those aren't named for Caesar. I mean, we get a salad dressing, but not knife holders. But okay.
Yeah. Well, there are knife. You've seen those, right? The knife holders, like it's a Caesar with a bunch of knives in his back, and that's your knife holder.
Okay. I was thinking
that's
of
what I'm
like
talking
a
about.
regular knife block.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the chef holding the wine bottle that holds your latest wine bottle. Like you've seen those, right? In the kitchen. It's like a wine bottle
I've seen
holder.
Stuff along those lines.
Yeah. They have a Caesar that has a bunch of knives in his back, and that's what you put your. Okay. Anyway, what were we talking about again? Oh, right. Street epistemology. So yeah, equating this mundane claim with, an emperor of a nation getting backstabbed in a forum, that's a pretty extraordinary event, but it is mundane compared to the supernatural is real. And so Cameron's trying to get these on more equal footing to try to make it look like, well, hey, you believe these crazy things, why not believe my crazy thing?
Oh yeah, it's all just history. Let the scholars argue over the history. We know the truth.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So that's confidence. Now let's talk about trust. Define faith as trust. Defining what you mean by faith is paramount. The street epistemologist's goal is to find beliefs you hold on the basis of faith, and that's true. Their faith is very much a central point in Bogosian's book. Really, what they're after are beliefs you hold without any evidence, and that's also true. The street epistemologist is going to ask you questions to expose your beliefs that you hold without evidence. The problem is that the word faith in the Bible does not mean believing something without evidence. Faith is not blind. Here's where we're going to diverge. In fact, in Bogosian's book, I have a bunch of bookmarks here. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Bogosian has a really interesting take on faith. Faith is an unreliable epistemology. Faith, and these are direct quotes, faith is an unreliable epistemology. Faith is a failed epistemology. If a belief is based on insufficient evidence, then any further conclusions drawn from the belief will be at best of questionable value. And that's kind of what I've seen, like individuals like Pine Creek do when they're talking to religious is almost always when you ask somebody why they believe their particular religion is true, they're going to go to faith. They're going to say, hey, I have faith that this scripture is true, or I have faith that this is the case. And then there's the whole, discussion on, okay, faith is not a reliable pathway to truth. Your faith as a Christian and the faith of a Muslim are indistinguishable to me. They don't help me at all come to whether the claims you're making are true or not. So this is probably where most of the contention is going to come in, because Cameron's going to try to frame faith one way, and then other people are going to, people like the street epistemologists are going to probably try to frame faith some other way. Yeah.
I also think it's worth noting what he doesn't say. Like, he wants to define confidence, he wants to define faith, but part of the key to what he means by faith relies on evidence, and he doesn't want to define evidence. He did not choose to look at that one.
Yeah. So he's got some quotes here. A Christian author and speaker, Alan Shellman, points out the Greek word for faith, pistis, is derived from the verb pistio, which means to convince by argument. Hebrews 11:1 explains that faith is the reassurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen, which that's a very popular scripture when Christians are trying to find faith. Some translators replace conviction with evidence. Faith then is being convinced that the things we can't see, e.g. God, heaven, the resurrection, etc., are real. The word faith is so often misunderstood that I avoid using it in most conversations. I use a different word in its place, trust. This better characterizes the Bible's use of faith, but is free of the misleading baggage. Biblical faith, then, is not blind, but functions the same way as trust. You don't blindly trust people. You have to earn it. You put your trust in people. You have a good reason to trust.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't either. It's
like saying it's not blind faith because we said so. Because we're going to use a different word, and that changes the nature of what it is we're doing somehow.
Yeah.
It's trying to label their way out of the problem.
Yeah. This feels like... So I think one of the biggest kind of counters to faith... well, not necessarily the biggest counters, but one of the things that apologists like to use is... Or apologists that don't know any better. They try to say, oh... I have faith in God the same way you have faith in your wife, or you have faith in this. And it's like, well, I have trust in my wife that she's faithful, or, I trust in my wife that she won't do something that will harm me. That trust is built up over time with firsthand experience with that person, with interacting with her, with conversing with her and bonding with her and sharing life experiences and sharing all that kind of stuff. Like, that's a trust that's built up. When you meet somebody for the first time, you don't have necessarily trust in them. You don't even have faith in them. That's something that is built up over time with actual one-on-one interactions with them. Here, it feels like Cameron is trying to equate those two things together. That my faith in my God is the same as your trust in your wife. It feels like it's trying to prop up faith to be something more than it really is. Because I can sit here and read a book, like I can sit here and read the Bible over and over and over again and start building up faith, but that's not the same thing as trust. You're just reading a book over and over again. You're not interacting with something in real time, dynamically getting active feedback from it and learning it and things like that. It feels like a conflation going on here that he's trying to prop up to make
low-key equivocation kind of thing. Because I could see a preacher building off of that and being like, throughout your life, the Lord has never given you more than you can handle, right? That's why you're still here. So
Yeah.
you can trust the Lord because, your life has gone the way it's gone. But it goes to that coin flip analogy that Jimmy Snow likes so much. Like, have everybody in the room flip a coin. Half of them get heads, half of them get tails. And you say, aha, those of you who got heads, you are blessed by the Lord. And the rest of you, well, that's unfortunate, but I'm not talking to you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So this is interesting here. Like, okay, so with Hebrews 1:11, explains that faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Some translators replace conviction with evidence. So we can read this as the assurance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
I don't think that's a good translation. I know if you go back to the Greek or the Hebrew or whatever, you'll have a root word and then you'll have choices of which way to interpret it. But that feels like it's a modern replacement. Like they saw conviction and said,
Yeah.
well, that makes people think of guilty verdicts, so let's change it to evidence. When really they should be basing it on the idea of being convinced. Like it's not faith isn't evidence. Faith is being convinced,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, like because we all can be convinced of things with or without evidence. When you have evidence, you don't call that conviction faith. You just simply say I'm convinced based on evidence. But when you're convinced without evidence, now that's faith. Like it is two separate things. It really comes down to evidence. And it's funny here that they're trying to conflate, at least this individual here. Did they give a name? I can't remember. So it just simply says some translators replace conviction with evidence. Like they are, yeah, they're attempting to equate these two and to allow them to be swapped in and out. So whenever you have faith or conviction, you can call it evidence. Like a strong feeling is not evidence of something. The only thing a strong feeling is evidence for is your strong feeling. It is not evidence of the actual thing you're feeling about. That's interesting because, like, you hear the book in Bogosian's book. Bogosian goes over he actually calls faith a very slippery pig. He says the word faith is a very slippery pig. We need to get our hands on it, pin it to the ground, and wrap a blanket around it so we can have something to latch onto before we finally and permanently subdue it. Malleable definitions allow faith to slip away from critique. And that is definitely what it feels like Cameron's trying to attempt here. He's trying to make faith into like a malleable thing where a malleable construct which can be resilient to basically whatever's thrown at it. And honestly, if you allow this kind of like flimflammery, this type of sleight of hand, you can create a defense against any criticism about anything. So that probably a good street epistemologist should pin down what faith is, because if you don't ahead of time, you're going to have situations like this where, oh, faith is just evidence, just different,
Yeah, and that's no.
Yeah. But anyway, Bogosian talks about the two definitions of faith. The first definition of faith from Bogosian, according to Bogosian, is belief without evidence, which it fits this Hebrews 1:11:1 scripture here. The conviction of things not seen, the evidence of things not seen. I mean,
I think that's why he points that out, because he's specifically responding to what Bogosian said.
yeah, he is. Which is really funny because that final part there, the conviction of things not seen or the evidence of things not seen, we're talking about, first century Greeks here writing Hebrews. Things not seen, things not observed, things that we cannot demonstrate. That's evidence. Like,
yeah, how could that? It's like that passage from Romans, like the fact that the works of God are invisible, cannot be observed, have never been observed. That itself is evidence.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, if you think about it that way, then this scripture translates to the evidence of things not evidenced.
I like it.
And that is nonsense.
Yeah, it's incoherent.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Anyway, we've gone on this long enough. Well, actually, let me
Bible
go.
study.
Yeah, the second definition he gives, just to complete the sentence or the thought here, faith is pretending to know things you don't know, and he has an awesome table here where he replaces like Christian deepities that involve faith with the phrase pretending to know things you don't know. Just one, for example. What's probably one of the best ones they have here? Teach your children to have faith can be substituted as teach your children to pretend things they don't, or to pretend to know things they don't know. Anyway, it's the table's the table's hilarious. Yeah, it's great. Okay. Anyway, let's continue on. Sheldon explains that faith, according to the Bible, is not blind. It is more like trust. We just went over all this. He goes on to point out how this definition of faith as trust, again, he's trying to reinforce that conflation, fits well with the rest of the biblical narrative. God routinely reminds the Israelites why they can trust him, put their faith in him. God is the one who delivered them from slavery. I am your Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. This is repeated over and over and over. This is why Jews can trust, put their faith in God. He goes on. Jesus also operated with the understanding of faith. John wrote 21 chapters about Jesus in his Gospels. Much of it records supernatural works. Why? He explains, these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. In other words, you can trust Christ because his miraculous works are a testament to his claims and credibility. Okay. So we'll kind of just rip through the rest of this here because we've already kind of beaten this dead horse. All right. There's more to say, but you get the idea. The biblical definition of faith is not against reason. It's not against evidence. It actually works with both. Wait, I thought faith was evidence. Faith is conviction of things not seen or evidence of things not seen. But now Cameron is saying it's not against evidence. It actually works with it. But I think it was equated to each other earlier on.
So it is evidence, but it also is compatible with evidence.
Yeah.
I love the incoherency. It just keeps on snowballing.
This is the result of when you have like this sleight of hand with terminology, which is it's something I've observed lately. I've appreciated more and more when it comes to Christian apologetics. It really comes down to how can we start skewing words to mean kind of what they don't mean, so we can start, either getting by counter arguments or, it's
just so trippy how he starts out by being like, watch out for definitions, and then immediately starts equivocating and confabulating.
Okay. So I think the rest of this is pretty good. Let's go ahead and skip to number 2. All right, number 2, slow down and think. I think that's great advice for anyone. I think my biggest video on my channel is only 6 months old, but my largest video is the one that's on could God not kill children? And that's exactly what I did with that street epistemology, or I'm sorry, with that Christian pastor in it. I just asked him a street epistemology question. Could God accomplish his goals without killing children? He really could have used this advice that Cameron's giving here. Slow down and think. Oh man, but I should thank him though, because I got 100,000 views on my channel because of that display he gave.
I mean, in fairness, the way you presented it, the way you edited that was freaking masterful, because you didn't just let him answer all 3 things and make a total jack of himself. You stopped at every point to be like, okay, now it's yes. Wait, now it's no? I don't understand. Yeah. It was great.
When I was editing that and I was going through it, it just got better and better. It was like it was just the gift that kept on giving. I was like, oh my god, this is just it's like you struck gold in a gold mine and you keep on digging, it just gets more and more gold. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And yeah, and he could have stood to benefit from this. Stop and think. I told him straight up in the video, I was like, it's okay to just stop and think for a moment and just say, hey, you know what? I don't know. Let me think about it. No problem. I want you to do that. That's great. And yeah, so slow down and think. If a street epistemologist asks you a question, absolutely think about it. Sure, in a one-on-one conversation, hopefully you're not in front of an audience where, potential for embarrassment can be there. If it's just a one-on-one conversation, it's okay to say, hey, great question, give me a moment, and then just start mulling it over. And if you can't get to a conclusion, just simply say, I don't know. I would love to come back and talk to you about that later. No problem. I think that's the only that is the honest way to handle stuff like that. The remaining responses remind you to slow down and think and really think about the conversation. Engage your rational faculties. I absolutely agree, Cameron. Engage those rational faculties. Think with your brain, not with your emotions. Yes. No argument here. Number 3, seek the truth. That was number 2. That was it. Hold on here.
It's subtopic 2, number 3. He's doing that thing where he's like got 2 different chapter schemes going in tandem.
Yeah, it's like a parallel numbering system. Okay, that's fine. That's fine, Cameron. I don't mind. So number 3, which is probably number 1 of this number 2 up here, seek the truth. Seeking the truth, seeking the truth means, seeking the truth. But it also means being honest with yourself and honest with other people. 100% agree. If you believe that Christianity is true simply because you read about Jesus in the Bible and believe what it said, then tell that to the street epistemologist. Sure, but the street epistemologist is going to use that to destroy you. It really is going to come down to it. If that is your reason, if you believe that Christianity is true, quote, simply because you read about Jesus in the Bible and believe what it said, then the street epistemologist is going to tear you apart. If that's his goal.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, as I said, I didn't even know this book existed. I've just heard people refer to street epistemology. And this is still exactly what I do instinctively when I look at like J. Warner Wallace or Lee Strobel. And they're like, well, I read Acts and I just knew it couldn't have been made up. Well, okay, let's talk about that,
Yeah, exactly. Philly, welcome, man. Nice to see you. Everyone's up late tonight. I love this. We all have work tomorrow, right? We're all crazy. I mean, I'm on the West Coast and it's 11 p.m. here. I mean, Amber, you're East Coast, right? So you're like 2 a.m.
I'm actually feeling live stream deprived because I had a wedding reception at my house. My housemates got married.
Oh, congrats to them. Yeah, it's cool stuff. So we were up late, but I didn't do my regular weekly live because there was a party going on in the house. I got you.
Yeah, that's why I'm awake and also here.
Well, great, man. Your party and your insomnia is my fortune. I'm glad to have you here. So yeah, this is awesome. Okay, so seeking the truth. Tell that street epistemologist. Don't lie to escape embarrassment. Though to be clear, basing your beliefs on the testimony of the biblical authors is not something to be ashamed of. It's not something to be ashamed of, but it is indefensible. Like Cameron here is trying to tell them, if you're the type of Christian who just simply believes, you shouldn't be ashamed. But you should be embarrassed. Because like if I came to you, if I knocked on you, if you're a Christian and you're the type of Christian that just simply bases your belief on the testimony of biblical authors, and I knock on your door and I'm selling snake oil, and I have testimony, I have my testimony, I might have somebody next to me saying, hey, they've benefited from this product. Hey,
there are 500 people in the Levant.
I got 500 Yelp reviews telling you how awesome this snake oil is. should you be ashamed that you believe me? No, but you're probably going to be embarrassed.
Yeah,
And
it's like believing any random rumor. Like, oh, well, I thought it might be true. It was compelling in the moment. I felt emotions. There was drama. So I just believed it. But now I feel a little bit dumb for just buying into it for no reason, you know?
yeah. So shame, no. Embarrassment, yes. You shouldn't believe anything based on testimony. I mean, you should believe. I take that back. I'm sorry. That was wrong of me to say. You should not believe anything non-mundane based on testimony. If Edmer tells me he has a dog, I'll believe him just because I got a life to live and I don't want to investigate that. But also, if I'm wrong, my worldview's not shattered. If somebody tells me that somebody rose back from the dead to prevent me from going to hell, that's something different. I'm going to need something more than just testimony about that. Yeah, okay, so seeking truth requires honesty, but it also requires setting aside your emotions and engaging your rational faculties. I completely agree with that. I am all about dispassionate discussion when it comes to these things. If you're pumping emotion into it, which my very first caller ever on the line the other night was a guy named Joe, and boy, was he pumping emotion into that conversation. It was really difficult to talk to him. Don't do that. Have your emotion on your own. If you're going to talk to somebody else about it, put it aside. Dispassionate. Have a rational discussion. Engage your rational faculties. I completely agree with Cameron here. I'm convinced that street epistemology is so effective because it engages on a precognitive level. So here Cameron, as somebody who wants to promote Christianity, proliferate Christianity, see it grow, admitting that street epistemology is effective in countering that. This here is Cameron's admission that street epistemology is a real threat to his goals.
I'm also interested that his phrasing, I'm convinced. Is this the faith kind of convinced or the evidence kind of convinced?
I am evidenced that street epistemology is so effective. Yeah. That was a great observation. Hey, if we're gonna swap terminology, we're gonna swap terminology. Mm-hmm. That's a great observation, Amber. Thank you. Okay. Sorry. I'm eating my now cold pizza, and my dog is looking at me like he wants some.
As doggos do.
As doggos do. My dog is very good at sensing food. When there's food around, man, he'll be there.
Well, I mean that's the very first trick their species got taught. That's how they got domesticated.
Yeah, that's how they got domesticated. That's how they
Come
trust
here,
humans.
puppy, we got food.
I'll maybe show him off once the stream is nearing completion.
Now that's a hook to keep people watching to the end.
Yeah. Stay tuned, folks. You will see one of my corgis, maybe two. I don't see the other one around here. Nope, she's right there. I got two corgis down here. You might see them. Send super chats. You might see them. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I don't care about super chats.
Do you have memberships and such set up yet? Custom badges and whatnot?
I have super chats. I don't have memberships yet. I'm not sure. That's a really good question. I just got a notification. I just got a notification from Google AdSense that they need like my ID and my address and stuff in order to send me the money I've made on this channel so far. My channel's 6 months old. I have made a grand total of $60 and like 58 cents off this channel after 6 months. So I'm balling. This is awesome. I am probably going to, like I said, mentioned before, I'm probably just going to go ahead and forward it to charity or something like that. I think that'd be a really fun thing to do. Okay, anyway, let's get back on track here. Here's an example of a typical street epistemologist exchange. Street epistemologist, what do you believe? Rando? Christian, Cameron? It's a Christian we're talking about. I believe in X. Street epistemologist, how confident are you that X is real? Rando, 100%. Okay, so this Rando is not a deep thinker. That's fine.
Not listening to Cameron.
Not listening to Cameron. Cameron told you what to avoid. He's giving an example of what happens when you don't avoid it. SE, what's the number one reason you're convinced that X is true? Rando, I have experienced Y, or insert some other personal experience. This is the first time Cameron, excuse me, this is the first time that Cameron has introduced personal experience as evidence. We'll see where he goes with this. Street epistemologist, have you considered that your experience could just be something going on in your brain? Rando, good question. I'm not really sure how to answer that.
From a certain point of view, every experience goes on in our brains.
That's what I thought too when I first read this. I was like, every personal experience is something that happens in your brain. What do you mean by this, Cameron? So obviously this is a simplistic, I don't want to call it a straw man, but this is just a really convenient example that probably almost never happens.
Yeah.
You know? Like, sure, somebody might say they are 100% convinced.
Yeah, see, that's why I don't bother with the confidence part myself, because it doesn't help. You know, you could cut those two sentences out and it makes no difference to the flow of the conversation.
Yeah, it's it's really bizarre. Anyway, let's see where he's going with this. I'm sure he's going to have a follow-up here. This is more or less the average Street Epistemology exchange posted on YouTube, only much shorter. So according to Cameron, this is what is mostly posted on YouTube. I would say I don't know how to respond to this because I haven't really watched too many Street Epistemologist videos on YouTube, which is something I should do because I'm trying to learn this. I'm reading more books and watching YouTube videos. Even though the Street Epistemologist doesn't really tell you what to conclude based on your answers, which is fine, the Street Epistemologist is not there to do that, they're hoping you see it on your own. Yes. In other words, they want you to leap over all the necessary steps in what would be an argument just to go straight to accepting their conclusion. No, Cameron. No.
No, because there'd be no point. Like, if you make people take shortcuts, then they're just accepting what you said on faith, and they'll get converted right back the next time they talk to someone from the church.
Yeah. And Cameron is conflating, Cameron's mixing up here the Street Epistemologist making a claim versus demonstrating that the claim of the Christian is not justified. You can, if you can demonstrate that the claim of the Christian is not justified, that does not automatically make the Street Epistemologist claim true. If the Street Epistemologist is making a claim, in most cases they wouldn't be. You don't have to, when you're talking to somebody and you're trying to debunk their position, or at the very least, demonstrate that their position is not supported by evidence, you are not necessarily substituting another claim in its place. Cameron is Cameron is trying to take out that middle ground of, well, the Street Epistemologist is there to sow doubt in your claim, so he can then substitute his claim in its place. When that's not what the Street Epistemologist is trying to do. The Street Epistemologist is just trying to say, hey, your conclusion is unfounded.
I think that maybe one of those translation errors in the way thinking works, because I've spoken to so many theists who think, well, if you don't believe Christianity, what do you believe? Do you believe Islam? Do you believe Wicca?
Yeah.
Do you believe? And I go, no, none of them. And they're like, no, you have to believe something. There's this idea there must be a narrative. So if you're taking away their narrative, it must be to replace it with your own.
Yeah. That's this, and this is exactly what the Jehovah's Witness on my doorstep tried to do today. When I told him that I don't accept that a God exists, I don't accept the Bible is true, the next thing he asked me, verbatim, oh, so do you believe that evolution is true? Or rather, I take that back, do you believe in evolution? That's the exact word he used. Do you believe in evolution? And immediately I said, to answer your question, it's weirdly worded, but I'll go with it. I said, yes, I believe evolution is true. I believe evolution is the best explanation we have for the diversity of life on the planet. And that has nothing to do with the God claim. Mm-hmm. I said, I accept evolution is true, but I'm putting that aside. For this conversation, I don't accept evolution is true. I still reject your explanation. just because I reject your explanation doesn't mean I have to substitute my own. And Cameron's making that same mistake here. I can demonstrate your position. If you are a Christian, I can demonstrate your conclusion is unsubstantiated, unsupported, without substituting my own. I think an honest street epistemologist, at least my approach is, I am not there to demonstrate or prove to you that God does not exist. I'm there to show you that belief in a God, any God, is not justified until there's evidence to support that belief. That's not me saying that God doesn't exist. That's me saying that belief in that God is not supported with what we currently have. Therefore, you should not hold that belief. That's all I'm going after. So Cameron is completely missing a reasonable middle ground here between the two camps, between his idea of the two camps, rather.
Blind spots, by definition, are something you're not aware of.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. All right. So take a look at the reasoning. Step 1, I can't think of a good answer to this question. Step 2, I haven't considered the possibility that my personal experience is just something going on in my brain. Conclusion, therefore I should doubt that Christianity is true. I am fast. So this is set up like an argument.
It's a syllogism. It's a non sequitur.
Yeah, exactly. It's a non sequitur. Premise 1, I can't think of a good answer to this question. Step 2, I haven't considered the possibility that my personal experience is just something going on in my brain. That's premise 2. Conclusion, I should doubt Christianity. It is a non sequitur because neither premises even mention Christianity. Mm-hmm. This can apply to any belief that is held without evidence.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Cameron's a Christian. This is a Christian blog, so he's gearing it towards that. I think he was definitely a little sloppy with this pseudo quasi syllogism is what you want to call it. Yeah.
Pseudo syllogism has such a ring to it, though.
It does, but it's not quite accurate. It's a quasi syllogism.
It's also a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. That's true. Yeah, because pseudo means false. Quasi means like
sort of like-ish, yeah.
Sort of like, kind of close. Yeah, like this quasi pizza I'm eating here because it's like 3 hours old now.
Hey, depending on the pizza, sometimes cold is, good shit.
Yeah, that's true. Some cold pizza for breakfast, good stuff. Okay, any further thoughts on this quasi syllogism here? I can't think of a good answer to that question. That's totally fair thing to say. Mm-hmm. I haven't considered the possibility that my personal experience is just something going on in my brain. How does that really relate to being a good answer to the question? I don't know. I guess I guess he's like kind of leaning towards faith is something that's experienced. Like faith is something that's experienced. Evidence is something that is demonstrated and shared. Like a Christian can't share their faith with somebody. Like they can't share their faith experience with somebody. It's personal by definition.
Yeah, I think he's relying on William Lane Craig's number 5 absolute bestest argument why Christianity is true. Because when you're touched by the Holy Spirit, you feel it.
Yeah.
But you can't ever share that with anyone. But, of course, it falls flat on its face when you remember there's other religions in the world. There's Muslims who say they were touched by Allah, and there's Buddhists who were touched by, Brahma or whatever. Everyone has these claims, and if they prove their God true, then all those gods would be true. And yet, here's Christianity claiming their God's the only one, and everything else, those people are just hallucinating.
Yeah.
Even though it's exactly the same experience.
Yeah.
But I think that's what he's getting at, is the idea that the Bible, you absolutely should believe the Bible, but set that aside for a moment. How you really know Christianity's true is feeling this Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely William Lane Craig has said that. And I think that's probably one of the, William Lane Craig is so problematic, but I think that's probably one of the biggest things that irked me about him is he's basically said that if Christianity could be demonstrated to be false, we can ignore all that because we have the personal testimony of the Holy Spirit inside of us. Mm-hmm. And it's like that really just reveals his true colors right there. He's not interested in argument. He's not interested in demonstration or evidence or anything like that. He's not interested in that intellectual rigor and honesty. It's just an exercise to him to get more converts. And when it fails, it can all be ignored. And that's a whole other.
He's a walking Texas sharpshooter.
Yeah, that's
only
a great way
the
to
hits
put it.
count.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, only the hits count, and all the misses can be explained by my fuzzies that I feel inside. Yeah, it's yeah. Okay. All right. So let's let Cameron explain his quasi syllogism here. No one can rationally infer the conclusion from steps 1 and 2. Okay, cool.
Okay, he knew that.
Yeah,
and he still published this.
That's kind of the point. According to street epistemology, the best way to instill doubt in people isn't to argue with them. In fact, street epistemologists are warned against giving arguments. There's a section in Bogosian's book entitled Avoiding Facts. I have not hit that part of the book yet.
That does sound damning. I can see why he'd want to put that in there.
Yeah, but it also feels like a cherry pick because, like, I could pick, like, Carl Sagan's A Demon Haunted World. I could just say, a demon haunted world. Carl Sagan talks about demons in the world. Like, you're missing, like, you can have an ironic, sarcastic title or subtitle in a book, and then the chapter be completely about something else. It can be ironic. I don't know in this case because I haven't reached this chapter yet, but we will hear in the near future, or I will hear at least on my own. But he admits that this is a non sequitur, but that's kind of the point. According to street epistemology, the best way to instill doubt in people isn't to argue with them. Okay? In fact, street epistemologists are warned against giving arguments. Yeah, I don't really know what he's saying here. Like he gives this quasi syllogism, this conversation that's never happened. Yeah, I don't know. He might be saying that this is exactly this is the approach that street epistemologists take, and the whole approach of street epistemology is a non sequitur, or the whole approach doesn't follow.
I suspect it's more that he's worried that the faithful are going to generate their own non sequiturs. I just did a quick Google on avoiding facts in street epistemology, and the TLDR is it's a caution against inserting your own facts, like you were talking about with evolution. You don't want to unplug their narrative and plug in your own. You just want them to question what they have.
Yeah.
So you want to avoid inserting your own information because it's not the goal.
Yeah.
That's what that chapter's about, and I think Cameron's trying to, like, play on that by kind of insinuating that the goal is actually to implant your own ideas, even though he specifically references the chapter that says not to do that.
Yeah, that's a good observation. Yeah, thanks for looking that up. And yeah, I think it really just comes down to that. I mean, so far, like I said, I'm only quarter way through the book, but so far the book's not telling me how to present non-belief to people. It is just simply pointing out, here's how you demonstrate, or here's how you get people to think about how they justify their beliefs. If Cameron wants to equate those two things, sowing doubt in Christianity and accepting atheism or accepting non-belief, he can do that. That's his prerogative. That's not really what the goal is there. The goal is to simply demonstrate that, hey, you're holding positions that you can't justify. If that happens to naturally lead to non-belief, or if that happens to naturally lead to atheism in some cases, that's a side thing, and that's not what the street epistemologists out there trying to do. It's like, I don't know what's a good analogy about that. It's like when I plant a seed, it's going to grow into something. What it grows into is up to the person, but I'm just simply showing that, hey, you know, the current belief you hold isn't necessarily justified. It seems that, I mean, there may be street epistemologists out there where the goal is to, hey, I want to convert this person to atheism. Or there may be the goal of some street epistemologists to simply say, hey, I just want to show that, hey, your position is not justified. And I would say I'm in that latter camp. I don't necessarily want to turn more people into atheists. Although, you know, the title of the book is A Manual for Creating Atheists. So, like I said, that is the goal of some people, if maybe even most people. I don't necessarily know if that's my goal or not. I would definitely like to see less Christians, less irrational belief, not less Christian people. I want the people to remain. I just want them to let go of these beliefs. I want
Once
to
we
see,
get the wrong idea.
yeah. I want to see people hold more rational beliefs or hold less irrational beliefs, and because I think the world would be a much better place if that was the case. I mean, definitely the United States, where we have Christian legislation.
Yeah, our Congress would be a lot less silly.
Yeah, and our Supreme Court. Yeah,
Nyar.
whole nother rabbit hole to go down. Okay. All right. So how does this work? Why do so many Christians in these discussions jump to irrational conclusions? Maybe because they are irrational conclusions, Cameron.
They're used to them, but that's a legit thing, because that's one of the reasons we're out here trying to push back on irrational beliefs, because they condition people to think irrationally. So other decisions they make are also irrational.
Yeah. If you hold irrational beliefs, even if it's just in one category of your life, that will infect and taint other decisions in other unrelated areas, because your epistemology is flawed. Yeah, and I said this the other night on the line, and I said it multiple times before in interviews. Once, when I left my religion, I was 20,000 in debt. I had no prospects, no education. I was at the lowest point in my life. Once I left religion and I started making decisions based on what will this decision result in, short term and long term, and I started using rationality, logic, and reason, and I started making decisions based off of those things, my life became so much better. I started making better financial decisions. I decided to go back to college. I made calculated choices and risks and stuff like that. And I'm not a multimillionaire now, but I'm way better off than I was 14 years ago. And all because I left behind the irrational decision-making process of, I want something, I think I need to do something. Let me pray about it. God, what do you want me to do? And then you'd give it a day and pray again. Well, God, what do you want me to do? And then maybe the next day, oh, I'm getting a feeling I should do this. Terrible epistemology, terrible way to make decisions. Once I abandoned that, my life became way better. And irrational conclusions based on irrational beliefs. And once you get rid of it, your life becomes so much better. All right, street epistemology is a bit like advertising. You aren't being sold on a rational argument. Sure, street epistemologists are not presenting arguments. So the way he words this here, though, is kind of weird. You aren't being sold on a rational argument, implying that it's an irrational argument, when in reality it's no argument at all. Mm-hmm. It's just questions. You're being sold on your own feelings.
No, that's pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah. And I even disagree with him on that. You aren't being sold on feelings. Let me give a quick example. We'll go on the example here in a second. But yeah, I agree. You aren't being sold on a rational argument, Cameron. You aren't being sold on an argument at all. You aren't being sold anything. You're just being shown by your own thought process that perhaps your current position is not being held with a rational justification. You're not being sold on your own feelings. Like when you're, at least for me, when I was a Christian and when I just freshly left my Christian religion and I started like exploring rationality and stuff like that, I was operating quite a lot on instinct. I was operating on, I left my religion behind, but I was still operating on like an instinctual type of, this feels right, this doesn't feel right. And now I have more of a, structured and well thought out, method of making those decisions. But when you're talking to a Christian and you're pointing out problems in their beliefs, and you're exposing that cognitive dissonance in their beliefs or in their position. For example, my God is all loving, but my God also drowns babies. Or my God is in full control of everything, but no, it's you that sends yourself to hell. When you start exposing those bits of cognitive dissonance, it does create an emotional feeling in you. It's a response you feel in your brain and in your mind. It's a discomfort. That's not the argument. That is the flaw of your position becoming manifest in your mind. That's not the street epistemology selling that to you. That's the street epistemologist exposing that inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny how Cameron's trying to say that bad feeling you're getting when he's asking you questions, he's giving you that, and that's not the case. That was there the whole time. The street epistemologist is just uncovering it. And that's the nature of cognitive dissonance. Once you realize you have some cognitive dissonance, you're motivated to change. But that process of realizing that you're holding two conflicting positions, you will feel discomfort because your brain is wired to handle the world rationally and logically. You just sometimes it's very flawed, and sometimes you have to work by the issues along with that. Philly, why are you going to make a voodoo doll of Trump? You need to mass market those and sell them. You'll be a rich man or woman. I don't know. You'll be a rich person. I don't want to assume your gender. You'll be a rich person, Philly. Make those voodoo dolls. I want 15%.
Pays better than YouTube.
It does, yeah. If it makes me more than $60 in 6 months, it'll definitely pay better than YouTube. Okay. Okay, let me give a quick example. Towards the beginning of a recently posted Street Epistemologist video, too, so I guess he links to it. Good for him. I'm glad he did that. The Christian says she is wondering where the conversation might go if she accepts. The Christian says she is wondering where the conversation might go if she accepts. Eager to proceed, the Street Epistemologist responds, the conversation tends to go where you take me. So I want to be a mirror to the beliefs that you have. I want you to actually face your beliefs and then look at them and say, wow, is that really what I believe? Is that why I believe it? Is that how I concluded that it's true? That's kind of my goal here, is to help you take another look at some belief that is kind of core to who you are. I guess, I don't know, like what, this street epistemologist here, are they necessarily engaging in an honest manner? I'm going to give Cameron the benefit of the doubt here that he's quoting verbatim. This is a direct quote from the video, even though it's not, parts of it are only in quotes. So he might be infusing his own thoughts into it. A street epistemologist.
I feel like the bigger, because it's like indented, it's set aside like like you might do a long quote from a book.
Yeah.
And then the quotation marks are the street epistemologist saying to the person they're interviewing, this is what you would say, or something. It's like a quote within a quote. It's dialogue within a quote, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, this is the street epistemologist saying, this is what I want you to feel, basically. The street epistemologist telling the Christian, I want you to say, wow, is this what I really believe? Is this why I believe it? Is this how I concluded that it's true? Yeah, I don't know. Like, I have to watch this video to really get a full sense of the context there. Because if a Christian is really convinced in their beliefs, then the goal of the street epistemologist is just to simply have that Christian justify those beliefs. If the Christian can't justify those beliefs, then that's really on the Christian to say to themselves, is that what I really believe? Is that why I believe it? Is that how I concluded that it's true? I guess I can roll with this. I have to watch the rest of the video. I'm not sure.
It seems a little wonky. Like, it reminds me of when somebody tells somebody else what they believe. Like, happens all the time with Matt Dillahunty. You know, somebody will be like, I believe the Bible from Genesis 1 to Revelations 39 or whatever the end of Revelations is.
21, I think, yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and they'll be like, okay, so you're fine with Deuteronomy 21, and they're like, what do you mean? Oh, biblical slavery. Can I make you a slave under the terms of Deuteronomy? And then they go round and round and round a bit, and then Matt says, well, if you believe the whole Bible cover to cover, then you do believe this.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's true based strictly on what they say, but it also smacks of that whole, oh, if you're an atheist, you must believe this,
Yeah.
Telling people what they believe, it's counterproductive in both directions,
Yeah. I think that's probably like when Matt does that, like if somebody says, I believe Bible, Genesis to Revelation, and then Matt can, I mean, that's a very broad statement. Matt can, yeah, definitely pick out a scripture in the middle and say, oh, so you believe this. I think that's a good thing to do as far as to demonstrate to the person, do not make such broad statements. Like, I'm fine with doing that. And then, if a person says, oh, I don't believe that, then let them back off of that and just say, don't make broad statements. Same thing happened the other night with on the line when somebody said, quote, I don't believe in science. And I immediately said, you understand we're talking at the speed of light right now to each other across, hundreds, if not thousands of miles, and you don't believe in science? Like, don't make broad statements. You're just setting yourself up for issues. But yeah, I've watched this video to really see. I don't
see people going, wow, is that what I really believe? Like they should know what they believe.
Yeah.
They may misspeak, they may overgeneralize, but I don't think you can make a person say, wow, is that what I really believe?
Yeah, at least not right there. Like, I don't think anybody's ever had a conversation like this and immediately Christian's like, wow, is that what I really believe? Like, it's going to take a long time to process. The person's going to go home, hopefully think about it, reflect, and then maybe start asking them those questions internally. That's not going to happen there at the conversation. Like go back to the Jehovah's Witnesses I was talking to on my porch today. I wasn't expecting them to deconvert them out of the religion today. I'm just planting little seeds and doubt and like say, do you really think that? How do you know that Isaiah foretold the fall of Babylon? Like, I don't expect them to answer that now or even next week. I want them to go home and think about it. Hopefully something good will come out of it. But yeah, so anyway, let's see what Cameron has to say about that. How interesting. That's just a funny, I don't know, like this strikes me as, you seen that comic about criticizing anti-capitalists, like a capitalist, an anti-capitalist says, I really am against our society and the way it's structured, and the interlocutor is like, but you live in society, how interesting. Like, this kind of what it feels like here, like, how interesting. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
The conversation goes where she takes him, the street epistemologist. Well, I mean, okay, wait, who's the she in this situation? I've kind of lost the thread here.
I think the she is the Christian.
The she is the Christian. Okay. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, the street epistemology should go, for the most part, where the interviewee goes with the answers and the responses to those questions. Yeah, you're right. He is a mirror for her own beliefs, which I'm not quite sure what that even means. He is a mirror for her own beliefs. Like, he doesn't hold those beliefs. He's scrutinizing them, and he's asking questions about them, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I gather it's not even metaphorical. It's just not a great way to describe it. Yeah. It's like, you tell me you believe in Jesus. Okay, you believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, do I believe in Jesus? Is that really what I believe? I can't let that go.
Yeah, and there are a lot of street epistemologists out there and a lot of street epistemologist videos. So I mean, they all can't be high quality or anything like that. There might be there's going to be street epistemologists out there who are going to be kind of saying and asking dumb things. I'm not saying that's the case here, but just this all kind of feels weird. It feels very cherry picked, like this one. Like, look how bad
it's very specifically summarized. I feel like somebody might say, okay, you believe in Jesus. have you really thought about what that means? Like,
Yeah.
you're not just saying you believe that you are saved. You're saying that a dude who was executed by the Romans got tossed in a cave for 3 days, came out, and then hung out with his buddies for, 40 days as a ghost, and then ascended to heaven where he's now a magic sky wizard.
Yeah.
Just expounding and expounding on what that really means.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that might make people go, when you put it that way, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. When you kind of lay things out plainly, they kind of lose the luster, like Noah's flood. Oh, God had Noah build a boat. They put all the animals on the boat, and the world flooded, and all the problems were solved. And it's like, no, if you lay it out plainly, God drowned babies. God drowned literally every single baby on the planet during the flood. Like, when you lay it out like that, it's not so romantic anymore. Yeah. Okay, so he is the mirror for her own beliefs, but what is he really doing? But is that what he's really doing? Of course not. Street epistemology is atheistic evangelism. So here Cameron's assigning motivations to the street epistemologist. I mean, I can see how, based off the cover of the book, Creating Manual for Creating Atheists, yeah, some street epistemologists might be the case, but even if it is the case that every single street epistemologist has the agenda of creating an atheist, that doesn't necessarily mean that he is not a mirror for her own beliefs.
That's true.
He's trying to say that because the street epistemologist may have an agenda, the things that he says before are a lie.
Which is, of course, a fallacy in and of itself.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, you're getting paid by NASA to shill for globe Earth or whatever. So what if I am? That doesn't mean the Earth isn't a globe.
Yeah.
I wish I were. If NASA, if you're watching, I'll happily be a paid shill.
Yeah. He is selling her doubt, just not in the form of logical argument. What, Cameron, earlier in this article, you said that doubt should be the part of any belief or something along those lines, right? So how are we selling people doubt when they should have it already?
And also, how is it selling? Because, I understand from the apologist side, selling Christianity it's valid. It makes sense because to be a religion in the modern context, there has to be money involved. What is the atheist selling? No longer giving 10% of your paycheck to the church? Keep your own money? What kind of salesman is that?
Yeah. I would say the only thing I have to benefit from, if I were to deconvert a single person at Christianity, the only thing I have to benefit from is knowing that that person has a slightly better chance of succeeding in life because they're making more rational decisions. And in more extreme cases, that person's no longer voting to legislate barbaric Christian beliefs into my law. Those are the only two benefits I get out of it. I get no money. I'm not selling anything. Bolstering the ranks of atheists doesn't benefit me at all. I don't get any gain out of this, other than I think I'm helping people to live a better life.
Yeah, you help the person individually, and you build a slightly better society.
Yeah.
With 365 million people, one person is a fraction of a percent. But if all of us deconvert one friend, and they can deconvert one friend,
and then that person deconverts 5 friends, and those people deconvert 5 friends.
It's not a pyramid, though.
In 5 levels, you've deconverted more than the Earth's population. Yeah, I love it. But anyway, just to cap that, selling doubt. But earlier, Cameron said that you should have doubt. How are we selling? Are we selling you something you should have already?
Maybe that's the problem. Is every functioning human brain should come standard with a full doubt package.
Yeah.
If yours is deficient, we're willing to help you out aftermarket.
Like, I don't know. Let's see here. Doubt. I'm going to do a search for doubt here in the thing so we can. Oh, I can't type because it's very late. Doubt. Give me a moment here. There we go. Doubt. Best way to instill doubt is arguing with them. Doubt. Okay, maybe I thought incorrectly when I said Cameron was telling us to have doubts already. I could have swore that he said something along those lines, but maybe I'm misremembering. All confidence, no doubts. Okay. Well, if I'm wrong on that, then I'm wrong on that. Let's go ahead and go forward. He said something along those lines, though. I gotta remember. You gotta find it later on. Anyway, let's continue on. It's late. Why not? So he has a short clip from Mad Men, which we won't watch because I don't want to get demonetized. Talks about Mad Men. Let's just jump to number 4 here then. And then we'll wrap this up here after this section here because we're coming up on 2 hours and I want to go to bed for work in the morning.
Good call.
Yeah. So he sums it up. Well, let me think. Well, I tell you what, let's just go ahead and finish out this section here. We'll talk about the Mad Men clip and then we'll stop here at Faith is Not a Method. So Don says in the clip here, you are the product, you feeling something. Isn't that remarkable? In advertising, feelings are what really move people. It's not the product. It's not a sound argument with true premises. Logic isn't even involved. Street epistemology, like advertising, bypasses your rational faculties and gauges you on a non-rational level. That is a load of horseshit. Again, Cameron here, I think, is conflating feelings and emotions with cognitive dissonance.
I think he's projecting. He's doing what we talked about earlier.
Possibly.
As an apologist, that's what he does. So that's what he thinks the opposition is doing.
Yeah, it could be just massive projecting there. Yeah. Hey, BS, welcome, man. You're up late. So are we. Can't complain. Or can't judge.
I don't think BS ever sleeps.
He might be a robot. BS, are you a robot? It's okay if you are. Just
yeah, we don't judge.
Yeah, we don't judge here.
Well, we judge beliefs, but we don't judge people.
Yeah. So, yeah, but again, cognitive dissonance is a discomfort, but it is not emotions. If I can ask you questions that make you upset, that is not my fault. That's not me using emotions to argue. That's me exposing inconsistencies in your position and you're getting upset at it. If the script was flipped and the street epistemologist was talking to me, and let's say, for example, I'm not saying all my positions are like this or even any of my positions are like this, but just for hypothetical reasons, if my position that I'm holding is 100% rational and 100% justified, there is not a single question that the street epistemologist can ask me that will upset me. It is only when the street epistemologist can identify a contradiction or identify inconsistency, isolate it, identify it, and make me face it. That's the only time I'll get upset, because that's a natural reaction to having an inconsistency or cognitive dissonance revealed in your brain.
Even then, I think it's a matter of viewpoint. Like, I've said multiple times that for me, I make mistakes. I'm wrong about things. When people correct me, I don't have that, no, I must be right reaction that you see from so many very religious people, because, being wrong is just literally a sin in and of itself. I get excited. I'm like I was doing a debate review and Leo Felius dropped in and I just off the cuff said that electrons move at the speed of light, which is not correct because electrons have mass, so they can't go at the speed of light.
It's like 99.9% the speed of light.
Yeah, but Leo nailed me on it and I'm like, thank you. My knowledge is better. I'm closer to believing as many true things as possible. I dig that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and that's the thing too. That's when you hold your position without 100% confidence, you are okay with changing your position on something. If that confidence level is really high or even maximally high, it can be difficult to change your mind on it, but it'll happen with enough effort and with enough evidence, and there won't be like huge deal about it. But when you sit there and say, I have faith that this is true, I have faith in God, it's 100%, blah, blah, blah. Now, when it's demonstrated that, hey, you have an inconsistency or a contradiction inside that position, then you can start getting upset about it because you just planted your flag on 100% or, whatever the amount they put on there is. If it's less than 100%, then there's at least a little room in there to say, hey, you know what, I reconsidered. I'm going to put my pride aside, put my emotions aside. I reconsidered, and I'm going to, adjust my beliefs to fit this new reasoning in front of me. It's when you do 100% confidence that you have those issues.
I also think there's a bit of a false dichotomy built in. Because, of course, from a Christian perspective, either Christianity is true or it is false. Either I'm right or I am wrong. There's not really... Well, I guess that's laws of logic, A or not A. But I'm reminded of a quote, and I can't. I'm not the kind of person who can remember who said quotes, but it's a famous quote. The mark of intelligence is the ability to entertain an idea without fully accepting and believing it instantly.
Yeah.
So we're asking people to entertain the idea that they may be mistaken, and it just does not compute to this either or mentality,
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Yeah, so let's go ahead and wrap up, and we'll call it an evening here. All right, so what should you do? Here's what I suggest. Here's what Cameron Bertuzzi suggests. Put your thoughts into a deductive argument and then analyze its soundness. These words I'm using are technical, so if you don't know what they mean, visit the hyperlinks. I can't argue against that. Put your thoughts into an argument and analyze the soundness. I think that's always a great piece of advice. Do your conclusions actually follow from your steps, or do they sort of pop into being out of nothing? That's kind of a weird dichotomy. Do your conclusions actually follow from your steps? So does your conclusion follow from the argument? Is your argument sound? Or do they sort of pop into being out of nothing?
Oh boy.
This process a great way of exposing hidden assumptions. I think he missed an is there. This is a great way of This process is a great way of exposing hidden assumptions. Seek the truth by submitting your feelings to logic.
I think he probably typoed on that too.
Yeah.
Like, seek the truth by submitting not to your feelings, but to logic. Or something like that.
That's a great point. Feelings should have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, it comes out really weird that way. Also, I wonder if he didn't mean to say deductive argument, or he did mean to say deductive argument in order to mislead his readers. Because, of course, deductive arguments can be flawed if your initial premises are flawed. Mm-hmm. Like, the whole reason that we don't use it in science, that Sherlock Holmes got a bunch of crap for use. Oh, it's deductive, dear Watson, because it's only whatever random stuff you can think of. If there's something you're unaware of, it's not going to be factored into your reasoning.
Yeah.
So I mean, reason it, but I wouldn't use deductive reasoning.
Yeah, I just opened the tab that he had linked there, and it brings us to a YouTube page called Syllogism 1, Basics of Syllogisms and Venn Diagrams, Deductive Logic. So he linked to it looks like just a logic channel on the whole thing of syllogisms and deductive arguments. So I think he very much intended that to be a deductive arguments, which is fine. I mean, deductive arguments are great. It's not the only way to really analyze your ideas or come to conclusions, but that's fine. And I think it's great that he's trying to raise awareness about what a syllogism is and soundness and validity and all that. I think that's great. But again, the street epistemologist is not So the street epistemologist's job is to point out any problems you have. If a street epistemologist is talking to somebody who has gone through the exercise of creating syllogisms, has gone through the exercise of analyzing soundness and verifying validity, and the street epistemologist can still raise emotions with their questions, then that says more about the person's ability to reach soundness and validity in their arguments than the street epistemologist.
Yeah, I feel like that's most of the better calls to the line is people who have gone through at least a rudimentary deductive argument and now think, the kalam is convincing. I ran it through a deductive process,
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, because obviously Cameron believes that Christianity is true. So he thinks that I don't know, whatever. That's another thing too he's been doing. He's been posting all kinds of crazy just esoteric syllogisms on his Twitter as of the past few weeks. He might have stopped recently, but he was posting syllogism after syllogism up on Twitter. I don't know if he thinks they're all true or I'm trying to get back. I don't know if he thinks all those syllogisms are sound and valid or if at least one of them is. I would hope he thinks at least one of them is. And whatever syllogism he thinks is sound and valid, if I were to question that and raise emotions out of him, what does that say about the syllogism that he's trying to defend? Mm-hmm. And if he's telling his audience here, hey, don't let them get a rise out of you. They're trying to play off your emotions, which is not true. If you're feeling emotions, that says more about you than the street epistemologist. Mm-hmm. Then yeah, if you have a syllogism or an argument, and then you can get a reaction like that out of that, or someone else can ask you questions and get a reaction, then yeah, it's an indicator of a problem, a potential problem. So yeah, all right. So we'll probably leave it there for the night. His final sentence: seek the truth by submitting your feelings to logic, which we already went over. I guess maybe what he means by that is set your feelings aside, use logic. He should have put it that way.
Yeah, or possibly biblically submit, let your feelings submit to logic the way a wife must submit to the husband or
oh,
something.
God. I would have all kinds of other issues with that. Man, so kind of a tangent with Jehovah's Witnesses, like a lot of other Christian denominations, the wife is in submission to the husband the same way the husband's in submission to Christ. Mm-hmm. Which basically means, wife, do what your husband says. If you don't agree with it, you think it's a bad idea, whatever, you do what he says. Because the husband is listening to Christ. At least that's the assumption. In reality, you can have a husband not at all listening to whatever Christ is supposed to be telling him through the Bible and doing whatever the hell he wants, and the wife has to submit anyway. There's a lot
of faiths that have exactly that chain of command thing going on.
Yeah, and it's just misogynism, just rife, reeking with dripping with misogynism or misogyny. But yeah, so submitting your feelings to logic, it really should read: seek truth dispassionately, use logic, not feelings. And again, if you're feeling feelings while arguing, that's more of an indicator of a problem with your position than the person. I mean, sure, I could be arguing logically and hurling insults at you and get a rise at you because you're getting pissed off. I'm calling you a asshole or an idiot or something like that.
People can get worked up while they're. I mean,
right.
I don't know if you saw the Dave Farina James Stewart debate, but my goodness, they got worked up.
yeah. I mean, you get emotions out of it because people don't listen to you or people are interrupting and stuff. But if somebody can just ask you questions and get a rise out of you, that's that says way more about your position than it does about the street epistemologists. I said it probably about 5 times already. Anyway, we'll leave it there for right now. We're a little over 2 hours. Ember, thanks again for stopping by and hopping in.
But of course,
this was an
always
awesome,
a fun time.
Yeah, this was an awesome crawl through half a blog post. We're on number 4. We are. Oh man, we were so close to being done. Oh, I almost want to go ahead, but I already said we're going to quit, so we'll stay disciplined. We'll quit. We'll quit now. I will probably tomorrow night. I'll probably resume this and complete this. If you want to stop by, Ember, feel free. I'm just going to go ahead and say probably maybe 9:30. I'll start this again. In fact, I'll create the thumbnail and schedule it and stuff like that, so it's on the schedule. If you want to stop by, Ember, if you're able to, you're absolutely welcome. I love having you. If not, no problem. I'm really glad you were able to join me tonight.
Yeah. I should be good to swing by. 9:30 your time, I assume?
Yeah, 9:30 PS PDT.
Oh, always good to clarify time zones.
Yeah. We really should just go to GMT or UCT.
I know. I've
UTC.
been pushing for planetary time for years, but nobody wants to change their clock.
We should have star dates. We should have...
For real.
Yeah, like in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, hey, thanks everyone for stopping by. If you aren't aware of Ember's channel, go over there and check him out and subscribe. I am planning on having a video by the end of the month. I'm still working on the topic. I've had nothing but like 2 months of live streams now, so I'm ready to get back to some planned content. But yeah, thank you guys. BS Lewis, Per Aspera, Kari was here earlier. Isaac, thank you all in the chat for, having a conversation and giving us your insights. And yeah, have a good night. Sober up. Go to work tomorrow. I'll hopefully see you tomorrow night. So cool.
Right.
Bye, folks.
Bye, everybody.